I am so excited to have these wonderful ladies with me. We are going to be discussing Loverin's Law, which is a bill that's going to be put forward next week through the Ontario Parliament that is going to present an abuse awareness week where we can use age appropriate language to help children and young adults and teenagers be able to discuss abuse, to talk about it, and to get support for it. So that's like an overview. But now I'm going to start with why this matters to me, and that is these two ladies tonight are both part of my healing journey and my giving back journey. Deb Maybury is a psychotherapist who works with a fabulous organization called the Gatehouse, which is based in Toronto, and it is one of a kind when it comes to helping adult survivors of CSA. That's how we're going to refer to it, which is childhood sexual abuse. And they're groundbreaking in their support in their programs. And Deb has been a fabulous instructor there, facilitator, jack of all trades when it comes to anything healing. I happen to have her book here, Unlock the Door, Beyond Sexual Abuse. And with a foreword by Gabor Mate, and anybody in the trauma world, he's the go-to guy from Canada, and he's fabulous in helping us understand how trauma lives in our body. And more importantly, why this law matters is because you can have something happen at a young age, especially like before 7. You might not have the words to be able to do it. So what Deb ends up seeing, and the path that she's also gone through herself, is dealing with it when we're in our 20s, 30s, up to 70s, right? So welcome, Deb, and it's good to have you here. And the other side of my journey to get here, or why this is so important to me, is I was teaching before COVID, I was teaching self-defense to high school girls with Safe International. And Pam Armitage is just a wonderful resource when it comes to the self-protection, self-defense world, violence prevention. She is, she's trauma-informed educator, violence prevention and defense expert. She is the Chief Impact Officer of Study of Violence, which is, by the way, we'll post this after, but they've got free courses on violence prevention and self-defense. And she's also a trauma-informed yoga instructor, and she deals with train the trainer when it comes to taking a trauma-informed approach to any kind of, living, right? Like, we want to be able to make sure that we're creating a safe space for everybody whenever we're educating them or talking to them about these kinds of issues. So I'm going to pass it to Deb, but I want to tell you how I met Deb. Deb was in my story that I wrote about my own healing journey in Life Live Out Loud. I met Deb at a women's group, and it was really, you wouldn't have thought that it's turned into the relationship that it is now. But for the first time, I had the stick and I was talking, or it was my turn. And I just happened to turn towards her and I just said, it's the loss of innocence. And she held my eyes and she just said, I know. It wasn't like, or any kind, it was just, I know. And that was so freeing to me and so life altering. So that's my experience with having Deb. So welcome, Deb. And any first thoughts that you would like to bring at with what I've just yammered on about?
Well, first of all, I just want to thank you so much for taking the initiative to step forward and to create this forum this evening on this round table, and to open up a dialogue on something that a lot of people find uncomfortable to speak about, and that is childhood sexual abuse and this type of trauma that people hold in a secret place, housed by shame. for so long. So thank you for asking me to participate, and also supporting this Loverin's Law. Charmaine is a very special friend of mine, and we also met in a very similar situation in a women's group, which there were more people at that event, but we ended up standing beside each other. And, you know, I truly believe there are no mistakes out there in the universe, and it's not a coincidence that we've met and that we've come together. So thank you, and I'm looking forward to listening to Pam and being involved in this conversation tonight.
Well, thanks for being here. Yay.
Welcome.
So now we have Pam. Now, Pam was an extraordinary instructor. The one thing that I really like about the program, and I know that she does it more with her husband as well, outside of the Safe International family. But when I was first training, that we had 3 classes in the same day. And that day, my first time when I was doing it on my own, and you know, whenever we're doing anything, we have to practice, practice, practice. Well, there was 3 different girls in that particular class, and the importance with the kind of trauma-informed self-defense, because a lot of people think self-defense, they think you're going to do karate, you're going to do, and that's all about it, but there's more to it. It's really about how you come to that situation. And for us, creating a safe place had these girls, like one after the other, would break into tears with, and let's point out that Loverin's Law is not just about sexual abuse. But it's about being really aware of what's going on in your world, how to de-escalate wherever you can, how to protect yourself. So it's not just about violence, right? Which is why Pam, lovingly, we created this place, and 3 girls in that one class, another 2 girls in another class. And that was my first day. And I was like, oh. And there was Pam, who was holding my hand through the whole thing. And really, while there's 3 women here and we all have our own stories and our own personal connection to this, I think it's the fact that because we're women, that the girls would come forward more easily, right? But this does happen. This is the one equal opportunity event that occurs in our life. Doesn't matter, you know, tall, thin, short, fat, rich, poor, black, white, yellow, every single part of society is affected by this kind of this kind of situation, unfortunately. So thank you, Pam, for being here with your, and again, I'd love you to also talk about the Study of Violence website, because you have some built-in resources there. That's also an online place to go to get some information. So
for sure.
Welcome.
Definitely. Thank you. Thank you very much for having me. I'm grateful to be here. I'm grateful to, I'm touched and honored that you asked me to be a part of this. I think this is a very important bill, like you said. You said a couple things that are so important, and violence doesn't discriminate. It doesn't care who you are. It affects every single walk of life, every gender, every socioeconomic background, every race, every religion. It doesn't discriminate, and it's something that everyone, most people will have experienced on some varying level in their life. Another thing that you said that's important is abuse comes in many forms. It's not always sexual. It's a lot of people think that when they hear the word abuse, they think physical and sexual, but there's many forms of emotional, psychological, spiritual, financial, neglect, and the like. So, you know, educating, and a lot of people don't know what emotional abuse looks like, even for example. So they don't realize, and I was one of those people, don't realize that you're experiencing it until you're out of the fog and in therapy, and your therapist is going, this is what you lived, it's kind of a wake-up call. So that education is important for sure. Creating that safe space, along with the education, taking a trauma-informed approach with it is important. We have to understand that a lot of these kids that we are going to be teaching have already experienced something. You can tell in the body language, and as you said, there were, you know, in total of the classes we worked with together, 5 girls that came forward. And, you know, between Rich and myself, Rich also works with SAFE. in a 4-year period, we've had over 30, probably closer to 40 girls come forward between the two of us and share that they were currently going through some form of abuse or a single event of an assault or some form of harassment or something had occurred already in their life. And 90% of that time, it was someone that they knew. It was only once, I think, out of all those girls where it was a stranger. The rest were all someone that they knew close to them. So these are important things for sure to talk about.
And that's wonderful. I mean, it's not wonderful, but I know that Deb, we've just been talking about, you know, the one thing is you said that there's somebody that you've been dealing with that wasn't even aware of. So from like the therapeutic side, you know, a lot of times as children or as young adults, things are happening to us. And if we don't have any other experience or any other education, which is why this has to be done in school so that everybody can use the same language. And I believe you were talking about how she wasn't even aware, just like what Pam was saying, she wasn't even aware that it was an abusive situation, right?
And this is not isolated. This is, you know, a situation that has come about just recently. But in all the years that I've been involved in therapy of one kind or another or coaching, I have encountered individuals, and a lot of those people were at the Gatehouse. You know, I always want to do a shout out. The Gatehouse is a place in Toronto on the grounds of Humber College in Etobicoke where people attend group classes or sessions together with other people that have been violated, and everybody has a voice. It's currently online. So for many years, I've been listening in on people saying, I didn't know, I was not aware that what was happening in the home, typically, or in the next level of it. So like coaching, teaching, cousins, you know, sort of just outside of the immediate family. I wasn't aware that this isn't something that went on. And I know in my own experience, you know, being told, you know, well, like, this is, you know, what we kind of do, like we kind of experiment or, you know, and that's not the case. Yes, will kids be curious? Of course they will. But at a certain age, there's something that shifts in, and children at a very young age are aware that this behavior is inappropriate. And this is the thing about the law. So it's all age appropriate. It's like an awareness week where kids learn the language in around various types of abuse, what the word itself means, and how they can, you know, express themselves. So maybe who they could talk to, who is safe and who wouldn't be safe, because this is something that's very important too, because even when you have the awareness that this is wrong or bad, you have to be careful then telling a child that, because a child will then think that I'm bad, I'm wrong at a young age. Whereas a teenager then will switch into, I feel dirty, I'm ashamed, I can't tell anybody. And both of those situations shut down the voice, and the kids don't know how to express themselves. So part of the training is to give them the words to use. One, like you said, to recognize that this is not normal, right? So it red flags it, but also to create a language in and around it that is safe for the kids at various ages in order to express what is going on. Or even if they don't express it, they have an awareness, you know, that this isn't quite right. And this goes for the kids that are being violated, and also the kids that may be learning through the grooming that then maybe they're violating somebody else as well, because they think that this is what we do, this is normal, right? So it's important for the children at a young age to become aware of what is, I'll say, appropriate, playful behavior in a sense, you know?
And yeah, and you're right. I mean, kids will be kids. I mean, and I think that the other thing is, and this is one of the biggest misconceptions. This is one of the things that makes me passionate about even having this and putting this together, is that especially now there's some conspiracy theories that are out there that are talking about all these crazy people are coming up with in vans. And as Pam was saying, out of like, I think the stats are, it's above 85%. It's over, like at least 85% are people that you know. They're people
Oh, yeah.
that are in your world. They're
It's closer to 90 even.
closer
90,
to 90.
90%. Yeah.
Exactly.
Some level of knowing.
And that's in any type of abusive
Yes.
situation.
Yeah.
And the stats play around. You know, if there's alcohol involved with teenagers, then it's a higher percentage or probability it'll happen. But the fact is that anytime when you get a stat that's over 80%,
Yeah.
I mean, there's something seriously going on here.
Yeah,
It needs to be addressed.
Yes, 100%. Well said. Well said. And I, that's so important, because another thing that's really important to point out is that 90% is someone that you know. That you know can be broad. A lot of the time it's immediate family members, and then it might be extended family, or your neighbor, or your best friend's brother, or your brother's best friend. Or, you know, it could be the store clerk at the store that you go to all the time, but in some varying degree, it is someone that you know. And another thing I just want to touch upon, because Deb, you said it beautifully. Right now I'm doing a master class on trauma responses. And today they were talking about language and the importance of language and using appropriate language. So it's something that kids can understand, and it's something that speaks to them. They were talking about the appease and please response, and how one case study that they were working with this one woman, she was living in a very dangerous home life, but using the term domestic violence for her was not appropriate, and she would shut down. So they used the term living with someone with dangerous behavior. They kind of found the appropriate language to use for her, so she wouldn't shut down, and the therapist could work with her and help her through that. And she ended up, because of that, working with language, coming up with a plan and leaving this dangerous situation and taking her kids with her. So language absolutely matters, for sure. It's a big part of it.
Yeah, for sure. I think one of the problems that exists is generalized terms. And when somebody even uses the word violence, well, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Violence to me maybe isn't violence to, for example, one of my clients. I have clients all the time that struggle with these huge, even to say a trigger. Well, what does that mean for what it is for me, what it is for, you two, what it is for my clients? Completely different. So it's narrowing it down. And for example, with that woman specifically, what is going on to break it down, so then also the person can isolate and deal with one thing at a time. It's too much when it's just, I live in this horrific violent situation, and that's just overwhelming. So to really break it down, to provide the care that she needs, and the support and the direction. And so she can just take one element at a time in a very difficult situation. I mean, domestic violence, it's very complicated. It can be excruciating for a woman to decide what's best, not only for herself, but for the children. And meanwhile, she's thinking about her personal safety.
Yeah, exactly. It's I think these things can transcend even education in school. Maybe this, language is something that, programs or services that help intervention with domestic violence, and help resources that, if these women are seeking out these services in secret, in quiet, how to help them take that step to actually leave. Because as anyone who works in that field knows, you can't just tell them to leave. It's very difficult for them to leave for a wide variety of reasons. So it's important.
Exactly. And I think, and so that's a great place. The other thing is like, as you were saying, when we use violence, what does that mean? When a child, there's the ACE score, which I'm going to be talk briefly about. The ACE score was developed because they actually tracked 10 questions about what kind of home life you live in, and the higher number of yeses you have. And some of those things, have you ever watched your parents fight? Has there anybody been doing drugs in the house or been, so this is the fact, is that these children sometimes, their parent is the one that they can't talk to. So while one of the arguments, or not arguments, and this came around the sex education curriculum change, was like, well, this is my family. I want to take responsibility for that. And it's like, yeah, but whatever language that you're using, you want to make sure that everybody has the same language, because you might be that safe house. You might be that house where that child, it's your child's friend that can come to you and say, oh, this is what happens. But so it's not just about educating the kids and making sure they have the right language, and exactly so that we don't get it so that it's a shame. It's not shame. It's not like a guilt, that it's like that you can start a conversation, right? And then if everybody's speaking the same language, and you can't go to because I know in my particular instance, that's what happened. I did go to, a parent, and I felt that I wasn't believed. And so at that point, it's like, okay, I'm on my own.
Yeah.
And then let's add on to it. Maybe years later, you go to a therapist. Well, making sure your therapist is trauma informed. If you've had any kind of ACE score or exposure to any of this kind of behavior in your own home, then, and you're going there. And I remember this woman, she said, oh my God, are you okay? And it's like, so now I'm trying to look for help, but
Hard to find.
you can't find the right place. You're not using the right words, so that's the kind of thing that I think is vital, because then that adds another 30 years to your healing journey.
Yeah.
So
Your
now
your perseverance is amazing, though. You didn't stop.
no, well,
And that you sharing your story is, I think, I really strongly believe that when we share our stories in safe places, and we start to share we give people courage to, to share their stories. You're removing that shame, and it's part of that healing. You feel less alone when you find like-minded individuals, if you will.
or even like, and that's exactly it. Like, so like with the parents, they also might not be able to deal with that. Maybe it's their brother, their sister, their, somebody that's close to the family, right? Especially if you're in a strong bonded cultural situation where, you've got a multi-generational family that's really, really super close. And well, we don't talk about that stuff. So maybe that's not the safe place to go and get help, but we need to be able to provide the support to say to the child at whatever age, no, you've got every right. And then to be able to, that even helps you manage. Wouldn't you say, Deb, like helps you manage as like, I see like having that kind of education, the child can come home and have a curious conversation with an adult that might lead to a deeper conversation about what's going, or a deeper realization about what's going on. Does that make sense?
Certainly. And I think it's all about the communication. I know if I look at the ACE score for myself, there are certain factors that would easily be ticked off, through, various ages per se. But whether or not I tick them off is sort of, it doesn't really matter, because in my situation, there was nothing going on at home. I was never violated at home. However, there wasn't this nurturing environment to share regardless.
Right.
So yeah, I had some of those factors early on, between the ages of 6 and 10 when I was, violated myself. But there was no dialogue created in the home environment that would nurture me running, to my mom, or when I went to visit my father, to share that information. The groundwork wasn't done for that. I think overall we have a better dialogue. Kids are way more informed now. You can have a 6-year-old that sits at a computer and turns it on and can Google whatever.
Yeah.
So they can
TikTok.
Yeah. They can find the information if they want it. So a couple things I want to say. So parents now, they sort of determine what their kids are going to find, certainly up to a certain age. Okay, so they're monitoring that. We have a lot of cultures. You know, we're talking about a bill that's an Ontario bill that we've posted. We'd love it if people are listening, if they would go and sign that.
Yes.
Charmaine's law. So within Ontario, there's so many different cultures here. There are many different beliefs. So there are a lot of people, whether or not there's any type of abuse going on in the home, they don't want their child exposed to anything of the like related to any types of abuse, because that's maybe they feel that's traumatizing for the child. So we have to look at that side, you know, that, you know, we don't talk about that and the religious or cultural beliefs. However, there are so many children that don't have the language and that nobody is stepping up for them. And that's where Charmaine comes from. Like, forget about all the adult head games and, you know, the way people think and believe. It's the children that we have to take care of first. You know, that's why we have laws. You know, we're talking about vaccines and all kinds of things, you know, that kids have to do. Kids are required to go to school. Now they can be homeschooled, but there's certain things that are in place to protect children. And to have something like Loverin's Law in the schools is so important. I pulled out a couple of my go-to things. So it's so hard at home. How do you talk to children about any type of abuse? It's like, how do I start? What age do I start? And I say you start right away, so there's never a transition. You know, this is your penis. This is where your vagina is, you know, and name these things. Mommy has breasts. It's not like a, you know, daddy's hot dog or something, you know, like you give the kids the right words. Yeah. This book here is an older book. Nice. By a fabulous, fabulous author, Jan Hindman. And she was way, way ahead of her time. And if you want to read some really pertinent information, poignant information, look up, that's the, I don't know if it's on, oh yeah, it is on the front of the book. Her name, she wrote a few books. She, you know, passed away way too early. Really important information around 1985, 84 on how the different, you know, in terms of the sexual abuse, how that affects children. And, you know, you mentioned, Gwenda, that you were actually one of the courageous ones, that you said what was happening to you, and yet you weren't believed. And that's the secondary level of trauma that happens. And in any trauma-informed type of processing, it's not typically one element. And that's why it's so important to find the right coach, therapist that specializes in an area. And that's why a place like the Gatehouse, where Charmaine has been a facilitator as well, is so important. If you're talking about sexual abuse, the Me Too, you're not alone. You know, people understand the language and the support. So it's so important. I don't know. I don't even know if I answered your question.
Oh, you're absolutely. I mean, this is the kind of thing. I mean, this is the first time that we're together, and I know that I already love, because I am going to ask Pam to talk a little bit about the practical side of the ACE score, because you're right, the ACE score may not be the be all and end all, but it's a pretty good indicator that maybe you've been around something that's left a mark. Because the funniest thing is, and I talked about this yesterday, is that something happens and then, you know, you have a couple of different things. Like, I had this belief that was put upon me that it was my responsibility to take care of other people. So because of this, I never really dealt with stuff, like got to the bottom of stuff, because there was just a layer upon layer upon layer. And we have, so first you have to excavate that, those layers. And the one thing, especially with any kind of trauma, the earlier you can get it, the easier it is to get to get that shame and that guilt and embrace that child. And that's why this is so important, that we find the right language at as soon as possible. You know, like even in the classes that Pam and I teach, that's the one thing that I love. This is the little exercises. We go, how many people, especially in Toronto, outside of Toronto, sometimes this didn't work, take the elevator, and they're like, well, we don't even have elevators, but you know, how many of you have ever looked in and had a funny feeling?
There's someone weird on it and your intuition went off and you got in anyway.
Exactly. And then the next question is more telling. Did you get on the elevator anyway?
98% of them get on anyway. And that's asking the why. I thought I was being paranoid, or I blah, 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 or this or that, or just standing there, la, 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 la. And, we explain that. That's how we explain intuition, and how it's a guiding instinct that we have. People don't trust their instincts and it's anymore. And I think, we live in a part of that is the society that we live in now. We're distracted so easily. We're desensitized to a lot of things where, people's faces are in their phone. The idea that people walk around public with their face in their phone is like mind-boggling to me, and headphones in their ears. Like, you can't hear or see anything. Like, it's crazy to me that people do that. But that intuition is so important. It's a big part of our curriculum, and a good resource for that. A great book is The Gift of Fear by Gavin de Becker. It's that book is awesome. Like, I can't say yes, Deb, yes, it's so good. It really is. It's a great book. I'd recommend to anyone. But yeah, that gift of fear is that intuition is there, and people don't trust their instincts anymore. And I find too that people are more afraid of offending someone than they are of, trusting their instincts and standing their ground and putting their boundaries up. And especially when it comes to maybe certain individuals in their life. So that's maybe another part that we talk about when it comes to abuse, language, and education is our instincts. Listen to your intuition and explain what instincts are. And yes, there's paranoia, and how do we differentiate, and self-reflection and awareness. And that, that's teaching self-awareness too, which is also a really important part of all of this stuff as well. So, I could go on and on and on about that, but I'll pause and let you continue to tell. That's important.
And what's a great thing when you end up, everybody's pulled up the same book. The one thing that I love about Gavin de Becker, I don't know where that noise is coming from. That's happening with the Zoom, right? Can you hear the other?
Can't hear it. No, I can't hear anything.
Okay, good. So the one thing that he says in there is you can absolutely see violence coming from a mile away. Like, so, and I think that, again, that's really important that when we teach, and I use this example that when I was teaching Little League, it was like Mike Ball. I had this one girl, and she was I put her in as a pitcher, and she was good. We're talking 9 years old. She could throw it across the plate. That's good, right? Yeah. And so the great part, she was great. And then all of a sudden one day she shows up and she can't get it to the plate. She's not even throwing it. And I was just going, well, what's going on? And she goes, well, my mom told me that if I got hit by the ball, I could die. She was 9 years old. And so this is the big difference. I'm not a parent. I'm a professional aunt. I treat all the children in my world the same. Here's the bar. I'm not going to lower it just because, and it's not really that high. But in this case, I went to the mom. It's like, you've just taught your child, instead of helping to have her trust her instincts and trust her ability, you've taught her fear. So now that makes her ineffective, because when we get into even the things of what does happen, one of the things is that as a child or as a young adult or as an adult, when the person attacking you or abusing you is somebody that you can freeze more, because it's like, well, I can't, as you said before, right? I can't.
Holy shit moment. I can't believe this person is this seriously happening right now. This is really happening right now. Oh my God, that freeze response.
And it is, I think like it sort of introduces freeze on top of it, because it's just like, whoa, when did this go from being, especially as a teenager, right? You're trying to figure stuff out. And it's like, when did we go from this to you're in my face? Yeah. And being able to, because here's the other thing as well. This doesn't just happen to girls. It happens to boys. It happens to young men. There's, this is also can be bullying. All this language is about because now there's also this fine line, everything's anti-bullying. Well, okay, that's true, but like, where do you get the line between, again, instinct, standing up for yourself and knowing that you're comfortable in your own skin and growing up that way, which is really hard these days with everything that's pummeled at children. But it's like, we need to have that language out there so that they can at least start there, right? But then the bullies as well, the people that are bullying, the people that are the perpetrators, especially if they're young kids and maybe people, as you talked about, I think both of you touched on the, oh, we're checking things out. There's youthful exuberance and curiosity.
Yeah, there's a difference. Bullying is abuse. It is. They're someone who is incessantly bullying a child. It is abuse. They're abusing that child. It's a teenager, a kid, bullying or abusing another child. And as we know, a bully is a cry for help. There's something going on. They don't just, wake up one day and decide to start being a bully. Something is going on. They're acting out. So something's going on at the home. That's a red flag, but no schools seem to address that. And their anti-bullying policies, in my professional opinion, are embarrassing, to say the least. They're more concerned with protecting the bully a lot of the time than the child that's being abused and harassed the whole time. And to the point that they tell the child being bullied that you don't defend yourself. If you physically defend yourself, that's using violence, and you will be, suspended or expelled. And well, you can't tell someone that they don't have a right to defend themselves. It's a human right, and that's it's any law and trumps any school policy. So you can't tell a child who is in fear of their life, is being maybe physically assaulted by a bully, that they can't defend themselves and fight back. That you can't tell a child not to do that. That's a very dangerous, and you're taking that kid's power away. Any chance of defending themselves, you can't tell a child they can't defend themselves when it's called for. That's a dangerous, grounds to be walking on in school policy. So I always tell kids, I don't care what your school tells you. If your life is being threatened by this bully, if they're physically harming you, you have a right to defend yourself, and parents need to back their kids up with that as well. It's, the law and basic human rights trump any school policy any day.
Yeah. Well, and I think, so Deb, I'll ask you for your insight here. The other thing is, I think that brings up a really interesting point, because there's a lot of times where, again, kids mimic what they see. Mm-hmm. And say something is happening outside of the home. Again, this can be you're right, a red flag. If somebody's doing a bully, or they're picking on somebody, or there's something, it is a sign that something's needed. But I mean, when you say, and this is the great part, is I think by introducing this kind of abuse awareness week, introducing this where the whole school, teachers are educated on how to deal with this. You can have a conversation with a potential bully and bullies, and they're all in the same class, and it can be a conversation instead of trying to de-escalate an escalating situation. Does that make sense?
What I will say to all of this amazing bantering is that, again, bullying, it's such a broad term.
Yeah.
I've been into the schools many times, going in and teaching self-defense and being there during bullying week, and they're wearing whatever color it is. And it's such a broad term. It's what is going on here, and having a dialogue specifically what is happening and talking about why it's happening. It just used to be called teasing behavior, mm-hmm. But then it escalated, and it became more physical and more violent. And now you pick up, you pick up one of these and you can destroy somebody's life, including your own, by taking a picture of somebody in an inappropriate situation. And now all of a sudden that's pornography going out there.
Yep.
And there've been situations where kids have been charged and kids have taken their life because of that freaking phone, and social media. But bullying, it needs to be very specific and identified what it is and why it's serving the kids to do it. They're doing it for a reason. It's serving, it's feeding their pain. Somehow it's feeding their lack of something, but then it's hitting the other side. The kids that are just drowned in so much pain because of the way that they're being treated. But I find it's talked about just so in a limited sense. And let's get really to the feels of it and what it feels like, and talk about it on a deeper level. And I can tell you for certain, without any doubt, whether you're a mom, an auntie, a teacher, whatever your role is, the greatest gift that you can ever give a child is just to hold that sacred space and to listen, and to not try to fix or to blame or to, say words that could potentially shame a child, but to hold that space and say, I'm listening to you. When you don't know what to say nothing other than I'm listening. Tell me more. I'm here for you. We're going to talk about this together.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell anybody yet. Let's share. Let's just sit and share. And to be able to say me too in an environment, one of the greatest moments I ever had in all the years that I've been teaching, what I call realistic self-defense for women, a self-protection program. The greatest moment that I ever had was on a Friday after a week of going into the school, and we had done all the testing. And I've got 10 minutes left at the end of the day. We're done, but I can't release them until the bell. And I said to the group, do you have any questions about anything that happened this week, or anything you want to share that you didn't share? And this kid shot up her arm like so fast. I knew that I was in trouble. She was going to ask something pretty serious. I thought, she's going to get me. And I just knew, intuition, this is important, and she's going to nail me here. So she says, Miss, why do you teach this? Did anything happen to you when you were a little girl? And I had that much time to decide if I was going to stand in my power and be honest and raw, which I had expected from them all week. Was I going to stand in that? And I did. And I said, yes. And first of all, I honor her. Thank you for having the courage to ask the question. You have so much courage to ask me that, and I'm going to honor you by giving you an honest answer. And yes, I was violated between the times of being the ages of 6 to 10 years old. And you know what? I didn't have this type of forum. I didn't have somebody that I could talk to about this. And I certainly didn't have anywhere near the courage that you have. Right. So, I stood in that moment. I just felt this, and I'd been teaching, for a long time previous to that. And I talked a little bit about it when it came up. But wow, did that ever wash me? And I just thought, it's a Catholic school, and oh my gosh. And the kids, when she asked the question, the kids were like, everybody leaned forward. And then afterwards, the kid just went, oh, okay, miss, thank you. Oh yeah, we really liked it, see you next time. But I just thought, oh my gosh, all the years that I didn't say anything, that I thought that was a big deal, and it really isn't. And I just used the language appropriate for that age. And I knew that the number one thing that young girls are afraid of is being violated, and often it's sexual. My first book, which I don't talk about a lot, that's What is Your Teenage Daughter Afraid of? And that came about because I was in a high school, and I found out that a teacher at that high school had been sexually violating a girl who had just graduated from the time she was 14 to 18. And he had just got arrested. And I'm just like, was that kid in my class? Did I teach her? All these things went through my mind. She didn't have anybody to turn to, and she wasn't in the phys ed stream, because often, I know, Pam, like for myself, that's taught through the phys ed stream, when it should just be mainstream. It should be the language in around inappropriate behavior, and just to hold that open space for the kids to talk. Somebody other than a regular teacher.
Yes.
They're
That they
safe.
don't have to see every single day, and
Yes.
you kind of connect with briefly there in that moment, that maybe they feel comfortable with you, but subconsciously think, I can divulge this, and I know that even though I feel safe with her now, I'm not going to have to see her every day for the next 4 years or 3 years or whatever, right? Because even if they love you and you connect with them, if they feel comfortable enough to share this with you, it is a little bit more safe for them when they know, whether they realize it or not, I'm not going to see them after this moment. So I can get it out, and it's there, it's done. It's that purge. Right. So yeah, mine was in all our stuff is in phys ed as well. Phys ed curriculum, it's part of it. And that is unfortunate. It's not unfortunate, I don't want to use that word. The problem that I find with that, even though it seems to fit the most, because when you do get into the physical, is that the term self-defense has a very dogmatic connotation with it. Everybody hears self-defense, they think martial arts, they think karate and kung fu and the like, and that's martial arts, and they're not the same thing. There's no art in violence. It's not choreography. It is certainly, as you know, when you are in a violent confrontation, especially when we're talking about extreme violence, you don't have access to fine motor skills. You can't even, people can't even use keys properly. You don't have that access to fine motor skills, which is what the majority of martial arts is predicated on. What we teach within the SAFE program and outside SAFE, what Rich and I teach outside of SAFE, because we do a lot of work in different facets, is based on the adrenal stress response. It's gross motor skills. These are things that you can impart with any walk of life, anyone, in a 4-hour period, and they don't have to practice for weeks and months and the rest of their life in order to just remember it. It's things that our body is hardwired to already do. And all we're doing is instilling the mindset. How do I go from 0 to 100 if I find myself in an extreme violent situation? How do I tap it? What mindset do I tap into so I don't, freeze, and I can actually survive this extreme situation? And those fine motor skills, as well as vital targets. What do we go for? Lots of people think cause pain, and hit really hard. Well, you can't tell a 14-year-old schoolgirl to hit effing hard, which is what a lot of combatives and martial arts and teach. You can't teach that to vulnerable population of our society, children, women, the elderly, and the disabled, the ones that are targeted the most. They can't hit hard. They can't do a lot of what these physical martial arts and the like teach, but they can, listen to their intuition, and they can find that compliance, and they can go for eyes, they can go for throat. Why? These things don't cause pain necessarily if this person is jacked on some kind of substance and they're not feeling any pain whatsoever. But what it will cause is defensive disengagement. Anyone gets anything in their eyes, what do? They're going to flinch and move away. You go for the windpipe, they're going to flinch and move away. Why? I can't see, I can't fight. The brain automatically goes into survival mode. The breathing, if I can't breathe, I can't fight. So these are very simple concepts. They're things that anyone can use, no matter your size, no matter your physical capabilities, your gender, or whatever it is that you are as an individual. It's something that can work for everybody. Is that adrenal stress response and working with adrenaline, things that people do naturally. If you look at perpetrators that are caught, they have most of the time claw marks. You're going to see scratches on the neck, on the forearms. Why? That person that they were attacking was fighting back for their life and clawing. But rather than going, and flailing, we teach you where to go. Go for clawing to the eyes. Why? They're going to flinch away. The groin is secondary target, but we always go for, everyone is obsessed with the groin in the self-defense world, and it has its place, but at the same time, every guy has been hit there. So they're used to it in a sense, and if they're not feeling pain, it may not work. But That working with people's limitations is important. You can't tell an elderly person or a disabled person, well, you just can't learn self-defense then if you're physically limited in what you can do. It's important that this is something that everybody, no matter who they are, is capable of doing.
And the other thing, just to add on, the important part is that the first day of this course is all about know your environment, know yourself,
Awareness.
de-escalation. Your whole thing is having language that is not going to be inflammatory,
Yeah.
not going to invoke any kind of, to make anything worse, right? You want to be able to dial it down and back up. So
yeah. And differentiate. Is it a good, if it's something where it's not a clear-cut case, we don't know what kind of confrontation this might be, but it's more particular in the stranger or a peer situation. Fish for empathy. Is this a good person having a bad day, or is this a bad guy?
yeah.
How do we know? Sometimes it's not clear cut. We fish for empathy. We make them feel seen and heard. That's what every human being wants, is to feel seen and heard. If they are the decent person, the good person having the bad day, you're going to deflate that ego and that anger and bring them down. You're going to know pretty quick, okay, he's really is pissed off about me cutting him off in traffic or whatever the situation is. Or if no matter what you say to this person, no matter how nice and polite and, passive you are being, they're still getting angry and invading your space, and it seems to keep escalating. Well, this person is a bully, or they're a perpetrator. They're using an excuse to try and victimize someone, which can happen as well. So that language, like you said, Gwenda, language is so important. Quit calling underage girls underage women. They're girls. They can't consent. That drives me crazy. In the media, when they talk about sex with underage girls, it's like, no, they're children and it's called rape. Stop calling it what it's not. It drives me crazy. Language matters.
Language matters. So we're coming to the end of the hour here, and I think this is interesting because this last little bit was about this kind of stranger danger, right? That is mostly emphasized by people think that that's the majority, and it's not. And there's a whole different way of actually looking at it. But so I guess any last thoughts? First of all, everybody that's watching this, or anybody that knows, please go for the link. Anybody that lives in Ontario, please help us support this bill.
Sign it. Sign it.
That we've given you, even though you live in Montreal, Pam, but that's okay. You still work in Ontario.
I got a ton of friends and family in Ontario.
Exactly.
Sending it to everyone. Yeah.
But as all of us know, firsthand experience with the people, the people that we've taught, that we've worked with, that you have in your therapy sessions, Deb, words matter. Creating a safe space matters. And really making sure that people, the other thing, I'm pretty sure that most people after this COVID have a newfound respect for teachers and how much they actually go through. But we need to be able to help everybody be successful at their role in our community, whether that's being that safe ally, that safe space that you can have your conversations with. So Deb, any last words?
Sure. The number one thing is to reduce the probability that something can happen to a child or teenager, a woman. And in order to reduce the probability, they have to receive some type of education. We can talk about physical techniques till the cows come home, but if we can avoid that person being in that environment, then it's not going to happen, and for me, it's 50%, mental strategies, which are critical. And then, the other 50% physical strategies and other things that you can look at. But it's so important at a very young age to start talking openly and honestly about life in general, different aspects of life. And it doesn't have to be a good, bad, right, wrong scenario. It's that this could happen. And then if this happens, then, tell mommy this. And, and when I was little, this happened. And then, so I want you to be able to talk to me, and you use the language that's appropriate for the time. It's about creating communication with children, with teenagers, so they feel safe enough to talk about what's going on in their life, whether it's sexual, physical, financial, whatever it is, Black Lives Matter, whatever it is, it's to have an open dialogue and forum and create that community within your family, within, your circle of friends, where people feel comfortable and not judged. So everybody has an equal voice. I want to say thank you, Gwenda, for again taking the initiative, and a shout out to Charmaine for all the work that she's done for 7 or 8 years. First of all, to create Loverin's Law, and then to see it through Parliament over and over and over again. It's so critical that we get these signatures in. Tell your MPPs about the law if you're so inclined. And Pam, it was really nice to meet you. And
You as well.
It's nice to see somebody else doing the work, being there for the kids. So thank you for doing that.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Anything else, Pam? And again, thank you to both of you guys for jumping in here, and thank you for just doing the law, because Charmaine wanted to be here today, but it's beyond her. But also to tell you guys, I got in touch with my MPP. He called me back like yesterday morning, and he's on board with this. So
that's cool. Very cool.
And that takes what, 15 minutes of your time.
It takes a village.
It takes a village.
It takes a village to do all of this stuff. It's so important. And the one thing I wanted to add, because we didn't get to it, was the economical cost of child abuse. It can lead to, it's a drain on our economy. Why? Because they're more likely to face all kinds of mental illness issues, from addictions to depression to all kinds of things, to health issues as well. There's also an increase of further traumatization, being, girls that are sexually abused have a higher risk of being raped in adulthood. So the economical cost for this is billions of dollars. If we cut child abuse incidences out of the picture as much as we can, we would save the economy billions and billions of dollars. And the only reason I bring that up is because I know not all people are going to be touched or affected by maybe the emotional or empathetic side of child abuse, but you talk to their bottom line more with numbers. This is very important. The economical cost in Canada alone for sexual violence is $4.5 billion a year. That's $1 billion more than gun violence that it costs our economy. So it's very important that we try and tackle this issue and pull the roots out of this, so we don't have that cycle of abuse too. Why? A lot of children that are abused, not all, but some of them, they become abusers themselves, and there's that vicious circle that we can also outbirth as well. When we talk about that, Deb had said the psychology is a huge part of it. I completely agree with that. I'll probably at least 50% or not of our curriculum, when Rich and I do it, we spend 2-3 days of the week talking about psychology and theory and prevention and all that stuff. Physical is incidental. Eyes, throat, get through that person. That's it. The rest of it, prevent, look for the signs, talk about it, open up. Use your voice. Use that voice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. And it's perfect. We're right at 8 p.m. Thank you very much, ladies. And
thank you so much for having us.
Thank you so much. And leave any comments. If you have any questions, please sign the petition, share it with your friends, everybody in Ontario. Thank you, ladies. Thank you.
Thank you.
I love you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Good night.
Have a good night.